Hello and a warm welcome to our webinar, Unlocking Manufacturing Potential. Today's focus is on practical strategies, how to harness complex asset information. Kierro koutou katoa, hyvää päivää kaikille ja tervetuloa, as we Finnish people tend to say. I am Mari Husko from BEYON. We are a digital twin company created by Pekka. And anyone who is unfamiliar with us, Pekka is one of Asia Pacific largest professional services company. Today we have two distinguished speakers with us, a brilliant Stuart Coleman, an experienced industrial engineering specializing in digital manufacturing, and our secret sauce, Stephen Witherden, a leading authority on digital twins for manufacturing and the CTO of Pekka's digital twin platform, BEYON. During our session today, I encourage you all to ask questions using the Teams Q&A feature on the top right of your screen. We will try to answer them all by the end of the session. So what do you say? Let's get started. Stuart, let's kick off with you. What exactly is complex asset information?
Well, Mari, that is a very good question, and thank you, and a good afternoon to everybody who's joined us. Okay, so complex asset information, surprisingly, is associated with complex assets. So a simple asset might be a table in a meeting room. It's not that interesting to the business. It's an asset the business owns. It might be entered in their financial system, where a complex asset, for example, might be a packaging line, has lots of complex data associated with it. So as it's being built, it accumulates data. There's drawings, there's specifications, there's operation manuals, there's maintenance procedures, there's validation data. And then as it goes into operations, it produces data. It's got performance data. There's financial data associated with it. It consumes services. It needs repairs and maintenance. And all of this data is complex to manage, and it's managed by different stakeholders, and it's usually in different silos in the business. And so the challenge is, how do we use this effectively, and how does it make those stakeholder groups run better?
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, it sounds like there's a lot of different information types and data points. So tell me, Stuart, in your experience, why is it significant for manufacturers?
It's another good question. So, I mean, businesses that use their information will replace businesses who don't use their information well. And I've borrowed this from an AI forum that I was recently at that says, people who use AI will replace people who don't use AI. But the information holds true is all about the information and less about the tools. But if we talk about the packaging line that I spoke about earlier, its performance is based on all of the different stakeholder groups operating it. So you've got operators who start and attend and execute changeovers, forklift drivers and AGVs that provide material to remove finished goods and waste from the line. There's maintenance and reliability staff who keep that asset available for production. Quality teams ensure the products are within spec. Production managers ensure the lines are performing to plan. And there's planners who manage utilisation of it. So all of these people need the right information at the right time in order to make the right decisions. And those decisions impact the KPIs that they live and breathe every day.
Yeah. It's just interesting sorry, did you have something else to add on?
Yes, I was going to say, if we've got this information organised, the people are more efficient, but then there's the opportunity for tools to leverage that information, and other things like machine learning and AI can then be applied to that information. So if we don't have our data structured, we can't leverage it, and that's where the real advantages take place by managing it. So the KPIs that all of those people have, OEE is king in a manufacturing line. But this is how we reduce the impact of people disruptions. People call in sick, we get new staff, the impact of knowledge leaving your business, human error, quality issues, change over time. So all these things we can impact if we have the right information at the right time. And that's all we're trying to talk about here is just get that information. So what is good today won't be good tomorrow. The benchmarks are going
Mm,
to shift as
mm.
businesses harness the power of their information, and they're doing that now. It's happening.
Yeah, it was just interesting what you said when you started, when you said that businesses who use their information well will replace businesses who do not. It's like nice to sit with that for a second. And it sounds like there's a not only a lot that manufacturers can benefit from by a focused approach using information better, but it also sounds it creates an agile future for them. But what does it really mean, like use their information well? What is well? Like I can only imagine that there's a, you know, different manufacturers with a different level of information, whether there's a very little information or there are information, but it's hidden somewhere, or there's a lot of information and a lot of data. So how do you know, like, what is important and what does well look like? To be able to comment on that.
So we try and to make it simple, we ignore all the data and we try and work out what information do we need to make
Yeah.
our task that we're doing. So ignore the tech, ignore the data. If you're going to complete a task, what is it that makes that efficient for you? It's you're going out to site. What PPE do you need? What
Yeah.
permits do you need to fill out? How can they just automatically populate? How do you get that information when you need it right then and there? And then you go back and get the data you need. Now, for
Yes.
bigger sites that have lots of data or new sites that have lots of data, then they can harness the information that's been created for them. If
Mhm.
they don't, there are techniques to capture information. Technology is helping. We can
Yeah.
capture lots of information. We can use automation and field capture. There's lots of ways where we can efficiently build twins without having to go that large cost of information creation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I also know by like from speaking to clients that one of the big problems or big concern is all the information is leaving, and they have a bit of this revolving door of people. Is this a challenge you have been seeing as well?
Yeah, I think knowledge drain is a global problem, and ideally we shouldn't store knowledge in people. They're not reliable sources of information. But if you break this down into two problems, there's finding people with the right skill sets, which we can give to our recruiters that
Yes.
businesses have. The second piece is reducing the site data and knowledge that's specifically stored in people. So we see this, if you compare someone who's been on site for 25 years, they're far more valuable to a business than the same person with the same
Yeah.
skill sets that's just walked in the front door. So how do we reduce this knowledge? And it's not that difficult to do. If you looked at the old school taxi drivers, they used to know all the back streets to the airport.
They
Everybody had
did.
their special taxi driver. I'm probably showing my age a little. Um, but we've systemized that. Google knows where everything is. All that information has been built up over time. It's all been captured, and
Mm.
now we don't need to rely on a person who knows the back streets to get from A to B. So specifically, that means where are assets located? Where's the
Yeah.
information kept pertaining to those assets? How do I use the business systems to get information? Who has the information that they might need? So all of these things we can put into a system and we can leverage. And those that are using ChatGPT that are really starting to understand how do I
Yeah.
just access data? I just query it. I just ask the questions. The systems consume the data and has given it back to me quickly and concisely. So that's where we want to get to. But
Yeah.
what people want to know is how do I find the information when I need it to
Yes.
operate, to do the task that I'm doing. And there's probably a couple of examples for real
Hmm.
life, as my 6-year-old tells me every time she thinks something's important. Um, so we've had a few examples to try and make this real. We had a customer with a new manufacturing line, and it was new and had all the documentation. Everybody done the training, and
Yeah.
then when it breaks down or something goes wrong or someone calls in sick, their OEE will drop 20 to 30%.
Wow.
And the reason for that is the information is just not absorbed by the people yet. And
Yes.
so you get a replacement person in there and it impacts the line. So how do they access, how do they start the line? How do they operate it? How do they do the changeovers? And that's where
Yes.
the impacts are lost. And so they want that information on the spot. How do I find something if it breaks down? I've forgotten training. It's not unusual. So that's a real life example of how we can do it. Another one, which we see from multiple clients, is they've got good processes and good information. They've got shift reports. They write down all the things that went wrong on a
Yeah.
shift report. The next shift then reads it. This stuff goes on like clockwork. But the
Yes.
minute there's a problem, they go out to the problem. They can't recall that information quickly.
Yeah.
And so they go there and they're like, God, I just wish I knew what happened to these assets. The last 8 hours, should I replace it or should I just, flick the circuit breaker back on and let it run? And, they don't have that information at their fingertips, and they always laminate. They go, God, if I just knew what the other guys did, but I don't know that answer.
Yeah.
And then another really simple one is we had a customer, their internet went off. And it
Yeah.
was the same problem we were talking about. And they said, "Oh, we've got a procedure for this. It's stored in the filing location in SharePoint in this location. The internet goes off." Not one person went and got that procedure. Everybody just ran to work out, go to the servers and check the problems. And so I sort of liken this to putting a fire out. There's a fire. No
Yeah.
one stops to read the manual on how to put fires out. They run to the fire
Yes.
and try and put it out. And so, um, how do we get around that, and it's possible to impact that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I got some really good examples there, Stuart. I can see how that presents a huge problem if it's not like addressed. So, I guess using that as an example, what are you seeing as the main opportunities to better use asset information to solve that problem?
So there's plenty of opportunities we can do. If you looked at the OEE problem, we can impact that. We can provide that information
Hmm.
on an iPad or a mobile device in front of people. Um, we can let them know where their assets are. We can find the information associated with it, how to isolate an asset. We can stop people having to go to site. We can virtually go to site to find things. We can avoid
Yeah.
looking for assets in the first place. We
Yeah.
can bring information to people virtually. We can avoid PPE and work permits. We can avoid taking two people with you to go to confined spaces or switch rooms and all those things
Hmm.
that require that. There's travel time and cost for remote resources or centralized teams. And virtual site visits, the unintended benefits of all those people that want to work from home a day a week.
Hmm.
And, that really impinges on manufacturing sites because the information's where is on site and they
Hmm.
require the people on site. And that just creates a point where people make a decision to either just have to work 5 days or leave the business. And that's not good for both parties. So, and then there's, the digital technologies play a big part in attracting and retaining digital natives that now make up 50% of our work. So
Ah,
it all helps in there's many problems to solve with good information.
yes. Um, is there a risk though that digital twin just becomes another thing that is similar to the manual, when the internet went down or when there's a fire, what have you, that nobody uses or goes to the cabinet to get it. Like,
Yes,
how do you avoid that?
it's probably it's a good question. So if it was a SharePoint system, I would say maybe yes, but it's more like Google Maps. So it's information at your fingertips. It's designed to actually stop that problem if I need to find information. It's there. It's all where you need it. And so if you took Google Maps, you miss your bus or your train on your way home, you just type in. It takes you 20 seconds to get the new optimized route home.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. So by definition, it's designed to make easy to access. So therefore, it's going to be used. And Google Maps is a good demonstration of the fact that it's continued to be used and it's leveraged more and more, which is what I expect a digital twin to do. So
Yes.
if you took my fire example and said, how does that look with a digital twin applied to it? So it is possible to have the procedure and the information when you get to the fire to put the fire out. So we can have our cake and eat it here. So
Yeah.
imagine that we've got that. We've got our digital twin with our information in it, and we've got our AI agent there, and we say, "Hey Siri, Alexia, or Copilot, or whatever if you might have a name for your AI agent. There's a fire in the warehouse. Get me the information I need to put it out, please." And so you run off to the fire, and our AI agent goes and it digests all of the information that we need, and it tells you where all the fire extinguishers are. It
Yeah.
tells you the procedure to put it out, and that helps you put it out more efficiently. So that is a possible thing that's achievable now. That's exactly the same thing as the example that I mentioned before, is I missed my train. What's my quickest way home?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you, Stuart.
So,
It has been such an insightful start. Hey, I might turn to you now, Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Mari.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks.
Good, good. Look, I want to come back to the Google Maps example. It's quite fascinating how accustomed to we all are to using digital twins daily and probably don't even realize it, you know. But when it comes to manufacturing, I feel like it's a bit of a buzzword. And at times I have found like people can be a bit confused as to what it is, what it does, and like what's the purpose. So can you crystallize for us what digital twin is related to manufacturing?
Yes, absolutely, I can. And I quite like the example of Google Maps because
Yeah.
it's an example of consumerization and commodification of technology. So some years ago, to use a system like Google Maps, which is a geospatial information system, or GIS, you'd have to do like a 3-year degree just to know how to use a system like that. And now all of us have one of those things in our pockets.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is the consumerization of the technology, making it much more accessible and easy to use. Personally, I live above a yogurt store here in Yarraville, and when I want to decide whether or not I should go downstairs to get a yogurt, I need to know whether the yogurt store is open. So I could either ring them on my phone, I could go downstairs and ask them, I could look them up online, and what I do instead is I use Google Maps. And the reason I do that is because it provides me with context. I know where I live, I know where the yogurt store is, I can go click on the yogurt store and find out more information. In much the same way, digital twins for manufacturing allow us to do the same thing. And I completely agree with you. Digital twins can come across as a bit of a buzzword, just like many marketing buzzwords in tech.
Yeah.
Things like big data or the cloud can sometimes sound a bit superficial. However, underlying the terms is real science that underpins them. So our definition of a digital twin is a high fidelity representation of a real world thing, which looks like, behaves like, and is connected to the real world for decision making. And so that decision making is such an important part. If you're not using it for decision making, it's really just a bit of a software white elephant.
Yeah.
When you relate this to Google Maps is a digital twin because it looks like the real world. It looks like you've got the 360-degree view that you can see in Google Street View. You can see the top-down view of the terrain that you're looking at on the map. It behaves like the real world, and that you can use it for identifying the shortest path between two routes, identifying how to get around traffic or the shortest path to the airport, as Stu was saying. And finally, it's connected to the real world, and then it's got real-time information coming in about traffic congestion, as well as information about opening and closing times for stores. So that's a great example of a digital twin we use every day, and taking those ideas from digital twins and bringing them into manufacturing is really what we're all about.
Yeah. No, I love Google Maps, unless I guess you're stuck on a highway and it starts to tell you like, take a U-turn. You can't go anywhere. So also, Stephen, would you be able to share perhaps an example of where this has been used, or digital twin has been used in real life setting? And like we use Google Maps, like how is it being used like every day?
Absolutely. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you all a demo of BEYON working in the real world. Now, this demo is taken from our demo site. After this session, feel free to go to demo.beyon.global to try the demo out yourselves, and we'll send you a link to that after the session. Please let me know if you can't see my screen, the joys of technology and live demos. So I'll just play this demo. And as we were saying with Google Maps, a lot of this starts with the GIS, or Geospatial Information System. So here I have a map of my enterprise. I can see my site here in Auckland, which is modeled on our Becker site in New Zealand. So you can see, I can see the context of my site. I'm going to drill into my site to find out more information. And as Stu was saying, on the left-hand side of my twin, I can see my PNID, which is the process view for my plant. In this case, it's a wastewater treatment plant. I can see how all the parts of my plant connecting together. In the middle here, I've got a 3D model. I can click on elements of that model and it zooms me in my PNID on the left-hand side and my 360-degree photo on the right-hand side, so I can see the full context. So if I'm not familiar with a site, if I'm working remotely, if I'm an inexperienced person, I can see what's going on. I can click on my 360 view, my 3D model, my PNID to get the full context of what's going on for each of these things and know where they are in their space. On the snapshot view, I can see events that have gone on. I can see there's some sort of bearing over temp alert, which I'm not really happy with. I can see the shift handover notes, and I can see that this pump has had some vibration alarms recently that people have taken note of, as Stu was saying in the shift handover notes. On the right-hand side, I can see a wiki that's been curated by experienced members of the team who've captured all this information for me to understand. I'm really worried about this bearing over temp alert, so I'm going to zoom into my pump and see what's going on. Now I can see the events that have happened for this pump over time. I can see it's been recently maintained, it's recently been repaired. I can see on the right-hand side my wiki entry with information about the pump in general, my work instructions, my visuals, and really importantly, I can see the common issues that have been captured for why the pump might fail or be operating inefficiently. On my asset details tab, I can see information from asset information management system. So its remaining life, it's got 7 years on it. I can see information about spare parts, about the manufacturer, about the model number, and all that sort of information that's really useful for me to understand when things go wrong. I'm going to drill into my manual now and see all my manual information, which is quite a lot of information from the OEM telling me how to maintain this asset and all the things I should be concerned about when dealing with the asset. I happen to know that the cause of this problem is probably a misalignment of the bearings. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace my pump. So I'm going to click on my replacement procedure. I can watch my video on how to do my replacement and step through my work instructions for how to replace this pump. And as I click through my work instruction steps, it highlights for me where in my 3D model I need to focus. Just like Google Maps, it allows me to do my identify my hazards nearby, do my lockout, tag out. We can support digital LOTO to allow you to tag assets in the virtual world so that people are safe while you're doing the change of a procedure. And here you can see as I step through my procedure, it even highlights where the pressure valve is, the pressure gauge is that I can check the pressure on to make sure that I've properly isolated the equipment. I'd just like to show you something that's really new that we've only just started experimenting with. So as Stu was saying, using AI to make better sense of all this really rich engineering information. So as Stu was saying, let's say I'm trying to figure out what the hazards are for my pump, and I don't really have time to read through my 70-page OEM manual. So what I want to do is I want to select the pump, get more context for the pump, and ask my AI assistant, hey, what are my hazards? So in this example here, I'm going to navigate around my twin, select my pump, it zooms to the pump as always, and then I can ask a human natural question, hey, what are the hazards for my pump? And the assistant knows what pump I'm talking about. It has access to the OEM manual because it's got access to the twin, and it's able to give me the answer to my question. And then I could follow up that question with more context to say, well, what PPE might I use? Or could you simplify that for me a bit? Can you give me the relevant work instructions? And you can start to digest and make better use of all the information that's available to me in the twin. So that's what we're all about, is getting the right information into the right hands at the right time for decision making. Back over to you, Mari.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. I'm personally a very visual person. It was really nice to see how that all comes together. Just looking at that, and you mentioned a couple of OEMs and photos and what have you. So how easy, quick, complicated is to set up something like this, like the platform itself? And what if you are lacking on some of the information, you don't have it, or what other sources, where do you collect that information basically?
So the question, as is always the case with software, is it does depend. Software implementations can be very quick or very long. So we have a procedure which we call Build Your First Twin, which takes about 2 weeks, where we have a really streamlined templated approach from going from nothing to a twin. And that twin then has everything that I've shown you just moments before, which allow people to actually get some real benefits from the twin and start building up the business case for why it's beneficial to their organization. The most time-consuming part of Build Your First Twin is really getting access to collating all the information that you have in your organization. Most people already have PNIDs, most people already have PDFs, information on their network share about their assets, and it's just a matter of finding that asset, and all you need is an Excel spreadsheet, and we can send people a 360-degree camera to go take some photos on site. So it's a relatively quick and easy approach to take. And if people lack some of the engineering information, because we're powered by Becker, a professional services consultancy with 100 years of pedigree in this space, we can rely on a whole bunch of data expertise to come in and help us curate the data for us to build a really effective twin.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Well, look, it looks like we are coming up on time now for the end of the webinar, and it doesn't look like we have had any questions come through. Hopefully this means that Stuart and Stephen have answered all your questions, but if not, do feel free to reach out to us. So thank you both so much for sharing your insights today. Do either of you have any passing thoughts you'd like to share?
I can probably jump in. The main thing I'd encourage people to do is start thinking about what problems they can solve and what opportunities are available to them, and ignore the technology. And then as a separate exercise, start looking at the technology that you use in your personal life and how that might be applied at work. So things like how could you have a Google Maps of your sites? How could we use ChatGPT at work better? And just start thinking those things through, because that's where the opportunity sits at that nexus point there. And if people understand their problems, then it's the technologies available to solve them. It's just the problems are the hard piece.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stuart. Stephen?
And my comment is, a lot of people say, oh, I want to tidy my information first. It's kind of like tidying your house before you let the cleaners in to do the clean, the tidy. I'm a bit too embarrassed. I don't want people to see. So my opinion is that sunlight is the best disinfectant. So actually, by building a twin and connecting all the information together, you expose your information to the people who really know what's going on, the people on the factory floor, and they're able to identify, hey, this PNID is out of date, or hey, this OEM information is not actually the latest version, or it's not quite the same model number that we're dealing with. And by exposing the information, you can get feedback from people on the factory floor, so you can actually have a virtuous cycle of improving the quality of your information. So making a start, no matter where you're at with your information maturity, can get you on the path to improving information quality.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Stephen. And anyone who joined us today, if you are interested, Stephen and Stuart have graciously offered to host a complimentary workshop for each webinar attendee. I think it's a really fantastic opportunity for you to talk about your own organization needs, and we can certainly share examples of what we are seeing in the market and insights into what others have been doing to solve problems perhaps similar to yours. So we will send a Calendly link after the webinar for you to register if you are keen. So thank you for joining us today. And if today piqued your interest, we have a couple of other webinars coming up, one on building workforce knowledge and another on asset performance improvement. So keep an eye out on our emails and our social channels. You can, of course, revisit this webinar recording on our website anytime you need a refresher, or you can certainly contact us directly for questions or feedback. So thank you very much for everybody who joined us today. Stay safe. Go well, and goodbye.